Hello and welcome to Kung Fu Cabinet Episode 4. In this episode we'll review Shaolin Temple against Lama, aka Shaolin Temple vs. Lama, aka Shaolin against Lama. Directed by Chung Ging-get, aka Cheng Kin-che, also known as Robert Chang. Starring Alexander Lo Ray and Alan Chui Chosunga, who also doubles as the fight instructor. Okay, Kung Fu fans, we're in for a Kung Fu treat today. This is a golden treasure from the lost tomb of old school Kung Fu awesomeness. This is a Taiwanese Kung Fu kick to Hong Kong Pow. The Taiwanese flair brings far out costumes, cheesy studio sets, old school Kung Fu movie scenery including vintage temple and village shots, blood, gore, intense acrobatics and wire work, and fight scenes galore. Kung Fu, yeah. Not ordinary fight scenes, but fight scenes that are undercranked. That's low Kung Fu tech for the low Kung Fu budget, so the fight scenes appear slightly sped up. This Taiwanese technique adds its own personal Kung Fu touch to Taiwanese Kung Fu flicks, one Kung Fu characteristic I'm personally Kung Fu fond of. The Shaolin Temple against Lama Kung Fu story goes like this. Alexander Lo Ray plays a prince and heir to the throne of Emperor Hokusao. 5 Lama factions exist at this time in China, and the leader of the evil Black faction hatches a plan to take control of the other 4 factions and the kingdom. He runs into problems, though, when the last 2 factions, the Red faction and the Shaolin faction, refuse. Meanwhile, the prince who's been training with the Red faction learning badass Kung Fu heads back to Daddy-O to rule the kingdom. The Black faction sees the prince's return as an opportunity to take the prince and the remaining 2 factions out of the picture. By getting the 2 factions fighting with each other and catching the prince in the middle, they'll kill each other and the prince, leaving the kingdom wide open for the Black faction to take control. So sets into play a story of wickedness, corruption, redemption, and Kung Fu triumph over evil. Let's check it out.
Our people admire faithful and brave fighters. The fighters of Shaolin are very faithful, and resolute, and courageous.
I'm sure they were plotting together.
Tomorrow I'll investigate this myself. You are certainly brave, Abbot.
You did not intend to hit me. Why should I be afraid?
Remember that not all Shaolin monks are good, and not all Black Faction men are bad. You must find the solution yourself.
The year was 1980, and the release of the kung fu movie Shaolin Temple Against Lama starring Alexander Lo Ray comes 3 years before another Alexander Lo Ray kung fu movie titled Shaolin vs. Lama. Kung fu fans often confuse these two kung fu movies due to not only the fact that Alexander Lo Ray stars in both movies, but also due to the kung fu fact of the kung fu movie industry's common practice of re-releasing and renaming or abbreviating the titles of an original kung fu movie. Such is the kung fu case with Shaolin Temple Against Lama. At some point after Shaolin Temple's release, the movie was re-released under the name Shaolin Against Lama, and often the word against is substituted or abbreviated with the word versus or verse or VS, which is exactly the name of the 1983 Alexander Lo Ray kung fu movie Shaolin vs. Lama. So when looking for this kung fu movie, be sure to look for Shaolin Temple Against Lama and not Shaolin vs. Lama. This kung fu nunchuck to the head reminds me of Willy Wonka meets Bourne Identity, minus the Oompa Loompas, of course. This is good old kung fu fun, which I like to call Kung Fun. This Kung Fu classic runs 90 minutes, and I consider it a Kung Fu movie for the novice Kung Fu movie fan. On Kung Fu scale of Kung Fu, I give it a 6. A 1 is not even a Fu, and a 10, a Kung Fu Pow. That's it for this episode of Kung Fu Cabinet. Keep an eye out for more episodes, and we'll see you in the Kung Fu Cabinet. Thank you.